You know how people say they just know when something's off in their family? Like, even as a kid, you can't put your finger on it, but your gut is practically screaming that something just isn't right? Yeah, that was me growing up with my dad. My name's Rachel, I'm 27 now, and this past year has been the most emotionally confusing, heartbreaking, and eye-opening year of my life, and if you think that sounds dramatic, you won't believe what happened in the end. My parents have been married for 28 years, but to be honest, their marriage hasn't exactly been something you'd want to model your own relationship after. They were always that couple that smiled in public but shot daggers at each other when no one was watching. My mom could be cold and passive-aggressive, and my dad, well, I think he's been hiding a truth about himself for decades. Growing up, there were whispers, not actual words, but tension behind closed doors, late-night arguments that I could hear through the thin hallway walls. I didn't know what the fights were about back then. I was just a kid trying to drown out the yelling with my headphones, but even back then, I remember wondering why my mom looked so defeated all the time, like someone had taken all the fire out of her. It wasn't until I was about 15 that I started putting pieces together. My dad had been caught, or at least strongly suspected, of cheating on my mom, but it wasn't just any cheating. There were rumors, quiet ones, that he had been talking to men, not just one, possibly multiple. I never got the full story because no one in my family ever actually talks about anything real. Everything's just swept under the rug and sealed with a smile. Looking back now, I remember my mom once had too much to drink during a holiday and whispered to my aunt something like, "He never even liked women." Not really. I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't want to understand it. I just knew something bad had happened and that whatever it was had broken something between them forever. But they stayed together, they just didn't fix anything. And I think the only reason they didn't split was because of money. My dad has always been the main provider. He works in finance, makes good money, and my mom, well, she never really worked a full-time job. We depended on him, I guess in some twisted way, we still do. But none of that compares to what happened last night. I was in the kitchen, just cleaning up some dishes after dinner, and my parents had just walked in from what looked like a regular night out. I thought nothing of it at first, just the usual silence, my dad scrolling through his phone, my mom sighing heavily like she does when she's annoyed but doesn't want to say it out loud, but then, everything exploded. My mom's voice cut through the air like a knife. She didn't even try to lower it. "So you're cheating on me again? You think I wouldn't notice a damn gay dating app on your phone?" I froze, dish still in my hand, heart dropping straight to the floor. The room suddenly felt colder. My bedroom is right off the kitchen, so even if I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard it, there was no chance. There was a pause, the kind that feels longer than it is, and then my dad mumbled something about how the app had been re-downloaded by mistake, said it was from when he got a new phone and just transferred everything over. "No big deal," he said, "just old stuff," he said. But my mom wasn't buying it, and honestly, neither was I. She told him she was tired, that she was too old and too emotionally worn out to keep living like this. She just wanted him to delete it, delete the app, delete the conversations, delete the lies. She told him to stop disrespecting her. I remember every word, because it wasn't just anger, there was real pain in her voice, years and years of betrayal packed into every syllable. And what did my dad do? He just sat there, mostly quiet, mumbling vague excuses, no real apology, no explanation, just silence and avoidance. You won't believe what I felt in that moment. It wasn't just hurt, it was heartbreak, not for myself, but for my mom, for the woman who gave everything to keep our family together, even when it was already falling apart at the seams. They went into their room after that, arguing just loud enough for me to catch a few phrases. I heard my dad say something like, "It was just texting, not physical," and I nearly screamed, "Just texting?" Like that somehow made it better. Like emotional betrayal didn't count. I couldn't sleep last night. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, wondering who my father even is, wondering if I should confront him, wondering what I would even say. I still love him, but I don't know if I trust him, and I definitely don't know how to look him in the eye after hearing all of that. You won't believe what happened the next morning, and trust me, this story is only just getting started. The next morning felt like I was waking up in someone else's house, you know that weird silence after a storm. Like the world is pretending nothing happened, but everything still feels off. That was our kitchen. I came downstairs around 9 a.m., still in my pajamas, hoping maybe, my parents would still be in bed so I wouldn't have to face either of them. No such luck. There he was, my dad, sitting at the table like it was any other Saturday, drinking coffee, scrolling through his phone, like he hadn't just gotten caught cheating, again, with men, on my mom, who was still asleep upstairs, probably emotionally wrecked. I froze in the hallway, my heart was racing. What was I supposed to say? Hey Dad, nice grinder profile. Yeah, no. But he looked up, smiled, and said, morning, Ratch, want some eggs? I swear to you, I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the disconnect between what happened last night and how casually he was acting was just, unreal. I mumbled, no thanks, and walked past him to grab coffee, trying to keep my hands from shaking. I didn't want to explode, I didn't want to cry, I didn't even want to look at him, but I also didn't want to let this pass like it was nothing. I sat down across from him, and for a second, neither of us spoke. Then I finally asked it. Is it true? He looked up, confused at first, then he sighed, a long, tired sigh like he was the one who had been wronged. I don't know what you heard, he said, but I didn't do anything wrong. I felt my face flush. That's what he had to say. Nothing wrong. I heard Mom, I heard everything. I didn't shout, but my voice cracked, and I knew he heard it. You were on a gay dating app, again. He rubbed his temples like he was the victim in this story. It was from years ago. The app just came back when I restored my phone. I didn't even realize it was still on there. That might have worked on someone else, but not on me, not after watching my mom cry for years, not after watching her build walls around herself, never trusting him again, always half-hearted in everything she did because she knew he wasn't being honest. You expect me to believe that? That it just re-downloaded and you never opened it? Never messaged anyone? He didn't respond, and silence is an answer. So I said it, are you gay? His head snapped up so fast I flinched. For a moment, I thought he was going to yell at me, but he didn't. Instead, he looked down, like a child caught stealing, and said softly, I don't know. That hit harder than I expected. I don't know. What does that even mean when you're married? When you have kids? When you've already been caught once, and then again years later? And then I asked something I didn't plan to, do you even love Mom? He stared at me, like I'd just asked him the hardest question in the world. Then finally, he said, I care about her, I've always cared, but maybe not the way she needed me to. That was the first time in my life I saw my dad say something that felt real, and honestly, it made it worse. Because suddenly, I was seeing the man behind the mask, the guy who had been pretending his whole life, pretending for us, pretending for himself. I didn't know what to say, I still don't. I just got up and walked back to my room, heart in my throat, not sure if I was going to cry or scream. I wanted to call someone, I wanted to talk it out, but who do you talk to about something like this? I thought about my younger sister. She's 23, still in school, still living with rose-colored glasses on. She idolizes our dad, thinks he can do no wrong, and here I am, holding a truth that would shatter her entire world. Should I tell her? Would I be cruel to drop this on her? Or would I be enabling a lie if I didn't? I don't know, all I know is, I felt like I was carrying a secret grenade, and if I pulled the pin, it would blow up everything. Later that day, I overheard something that made it worse. My dad called someone. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I caught just enough. He was talking to someone named James, laughing, nervous, flirtatious. I swear to you, it wasn't just a friend. My heart sank. He hasn't stopped, he is cheating, he's lying to all of us, still. And suddenly, everything I thought I understood about my family cracked wide open. You won't believe what I did next, and how it changed everything between me and my mom. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that phone call in my head, trying to convince myself I'd misheard, that maybe James was just some coworker, that maybe I was just being paranoid. But no matter how many excuses I came up with, my gut kept saying the same thing. My dad wasn't done cheating, not even close. By midnight, I was pacing in my room, wrapped in my hoodie, gripping my phone but not texting anyone. I didn't have anyone I could text, not about this, not about him. And then, I don't know what came over me, I walked down the hall to my parents' bedroom and knocked. I hadn't done that in years, not since I was maybe 14 and scared from a thunderstorm, but now I was 27, and it wasn't thunder outside keeping me up, it was the storm inside our house. My mom answered, her voice was tired. Yeah. Can we talk? I asked, just us. She hesitated, I could feel it, but then she opened the door and stepped aside, wearing this oversized faded t-shirt and pajama pants. She looked older than I remembered, not just in years, but in exhaustion, like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. We sat on the bed, and for a moment neither of us said anything. I didn't know how to start, she just looked at me like she already knew. I heard everything, I finally said, my voice cracked, but I didn't cry, not yet. She nodded slowly, looking away. I figured you did. I don't know what to do with it, I said, I feel like I don't even know Dad anymore. And then she said something that hit me like a punch to the chest. You never really did, sweetheart. I stared at her, stunned. What do you mean? She took a deep breath, and for the first time in my life, my mom told me everything. Turns out, 12 years ago, when I was just a teenager, she caught my dad not just messaging other men, but sneaking out to meet up with them. It wasn't just photos, it wasn't just talk, it was physical, it was real, and it happened more than once. She confronted him back then too, and he broke down crying, saying he was confused, that it was a mistake, that it meant nothing. He swore he was straight, that it was just a phase, and begged her not to leave him. And you know what? She didn't. She stayed. Because of us. Because she didn't work at the time, and my dad controlled the finances, because she was afraid of what people would say, because she thought she could fix it, that maybe it really was a one-time thing. But it wasn't. And over the years, even if he didn't get caught again until now, he changed, he got more distant, more irritable, more secretive. He wasn't a husband anymore, she said, he was just your father, a roommate, someone I lived with but couldn't trust. And that's when the tears came, not from her, from me. Because it suddenly made sense why she becomes so guarded, why she always drank a little too much at family events, why she snapped at him so easily, even over little things like forgetting to take the trash out. It wasn't about the trash, it was about all the lies. You should have told me, I whispered, years ago. She looked at me, eyes full of guilt. I didn't want you and your sister to grow up thinking your dad was a monster, I didn't want to ruin your image of him. Well, it's ruined now, I said, and I meant it. But then she surprised me again. He's not a monster, Rachel, he's just broken. I didn't know how to respond to that. I hated that part of me agreed, that despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the secret life, I still remembered him tucking me in at night, teaching me how to ride a bike, cheering me on at my high school graduation. Those memories didn't disappear overnight. But they changed. I wasn't seeing my dad as a villain, I was seeing him as a coward, someone too afraid to live his truth, so he dragged us all into a lie instead. And then Mom said something that absolutely floored me. Do you remember Uncle Greg? I blinked. Your cousin. From Chicago? She nodded. He was more than just a cousin to your dad, they were together before we ever met. I just sat there, stunned. They broke it off when your dad decided he wanted a normal life, she said, using air quotes, a wife, kids, a house with a white picket fence, the whole dream, but it was always a mask. My jaw dropped. So, he's always been gay. I think he's always been afraid, she said softly. It was like my entire childhood had been rewritten in that moment, all those awkward silences at holidays, the passive-aggressive comments, the weird distance between my dad and certain family members, it all clicked. I went back to my room that night not angry, but shattered, like someone had handed me a puzzle I'd been working on my whole life, and now told me I'd been using the wrong picture on the box the entire time. I didn't sleep, again. But I did make a decision. I had to confront my dad one more time, but not just as his daughter, as someone who deserved the truth, all of it. Because you won't believe what happened when I finally sat him down, and how he reacted when I told him what Mom revealed about his past. The next day, I waited until the house was quiet, my mom was out running errands, and my sister was at work, just me and my dad. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, scrolling through his phone like everything was normal. It wasn't. I stood there for a second, watching him, the man I used to think had it all together. Now, all I saw was someone crumbling behind a mask he'd worn too long. "Can we talk?" I asked. He looked up, surprised. "Sure, everything okay?" "No, not really." He shifted in his seat, setting his phone down. "All right, what's going on?" I sat across from him and took a deep breath. "I know about the app, I heard the fight, I know it wasn't just a mistake or an accident or something from years ago." He stared at me, eyes dark and unreadable. "Rachel." "And I know about Greg," I added quietly. That stopped him cold. He blinked, once, twice, his mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. For a moment, I swear he looked scared. "You and Mom dated other people before you got married. That's not the part that hurts," I said. "What hurts is the lying, the hiding, the cheating." He ran a hand over his face, suddenly looking like he'd aged 10 years in front of me. "I was going to tell you," he said finally, "someday, I just didn't know how." "That excuse is getting old, Dad," I said, trying not to let my voice shake. "You've had nearly 3 decades. He was quiet, then, in a voice so soft I barely heard it, he said, "I was in love with Greg." I froze. He didn't say it with shame, he said it like someone saying a name he hadn't let himself say out loud in years, maybe decades. He was the first person who really saw me, the real me, and when we broke it off. "I thought I was doing the right thing, marrying your mom, starting a family. I thought I could just bury that part of me." "By cheating on Mom?" I asked sharply. He winced. "No, that wasn't supposed to happen, I was lonely, I wasn't happy, I felt like I was living someone else's life." "You were," I snapped, "and you dragged the rest of us into it." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "And honestly, I didn't feel bad." "You could have been honest from the beginning," I said. "You could have told Mom, you could have told me." "I didn't want to lose you," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought if I came out, you'd hate me." I was silent for a second, then I said the thing I'd been holding inside for years. "I don't hate you because you might be gay, I hate that you lied." Tears welled in his eyes, but I didn't stop. "I spent my whole life thinking we were some normal family with quirks, and now I realize we were all actors in your play, pretending like everything was fine when nothing was." He looked down at the table, gripping the edge like he might fall apart right there. "I never wanted to hurt any of you," he whispered. "But you did," my voice cracked. "You hurt Mom, you hurt me, and if I tell my sister, she'll be broken too." He nodded slowly, shame flooding his features. "I deserve that." We sat in silence, just breathing. And then I asked the question I never thought I'd ask my father. "Do you love Mom?" His eyes met mine, full of something raw and sad. "I care about her, I always have, but not the way she deserved." It was the most honest thing I think I'd ever heard him say. "I think I need to tell your sister," I added quietly. "This isn't something I can carry alone." He hesitated, and then nodded. "She deserves the truth too, just, please don't hate me." And for the first time, I saw the little boy in him, the scared, closeted kid who never got to be himself, who chose safety over honesty, who traded love for approval, and now, he had nothing left to hide behind. "I don't hate you," I said softly, "but I don't trust you, not yet." He wiped his face and nodded again. "That's fair." Right then, I didn't feel angry anymore, just tired, and sad. Sad for my mom, who built a life with someone who couldn't give her the love she deserved. Sad for me and my sister, who'd grown up with a version of our dad that wasn't real. And honestly, sad for him too, because even now, even after all this, I think he still didn't fully know who he was. But that night changed everything, because once I told my sister, everything exploded. And the fallout? You won't believe what happened. I waited a full day before telling my sister. Part of me hoped I wouldn't have to, like maybe this whole thing would magically resolve itself overnight and we'd go back to pretending everything was fine, but I knew better, that ship had sailed. So I picked a quiet moment, just her and me, in the living room while Mom was out and Dad was working late. I turned off the TV and said, "There's something I need to tell you, and it's going to change everything." She looked at me, confused but alert. "What is it?" I didn't draw it out, I just said it, all of it. That Dad had cheated, that it wasn't the first time, that it was with men, that Mom had confronted him, that I'd talked to him, that he admitted he was in love with someone, a man, a long time ago. And the worst part? That he never really told the truth, to anyone. My sister just stared at me for a second, mouth slightly open, like she was trying to reboot her entire memory of our family in real time. "Are you serious right now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wouldn't joke about this," I said. Then she laughed, a weird, broken kind of laugh that was halfway to a sob. I knew something was off. I always knew, the tension, the fights, the way Mom acted every time they were in the same room together. I nodded. Yeah, it was like we were all dancing around a truth nobody had the guts to say out loud. And that's when her face changed, like something else clicked into place in her head. "Wait," she said, narrowing her eyes, "you're talking about Greg, right?" My heart practically stopped. "How do you know about Greg?" She stared at me like I was the idiot, because I met Greg. I blinked. "What?" She stood up, pacing now. "Years ago, at Dad's office Christmas party, he introduced him as a former coworker. They were super friendly, and I remember thinking it was kinda weird how close they were, but I brushed it off. I even asked Mom later if she thought it was strange. She got super cold and changed the subject." I sat back, completely stunned. "You're telling me Greg was real?" "I'm telling you Greg hugged Dad longer than anyone should hug a former coworker, and now I'm wondering how many times we missed the signs." And just like that, the whole thing felt enormous, bigger than the app, bigger than the fight. This wasn't just a mistake, this was a whole secret life threaded through our childhood like invisible string. Later that night, the storm hit. Mom found out I told my sister. I didn't mean for it to happen so soon, but emotions were high and things spilled. She was hurt, at first, not because she thought I was wrong, but because it confirmed something she'd buried for years. She finally admitted it. The cheating wasn't just texting, it had been physical. Years ago, she'd caught him, they'd had a huge blowout, she'd threatened divorce, but they were broke at the time, and we were kids, and she was scared. She stayed. She stayed with a man she didn't trust, for us, and a tiny part of her still hoped he'd come back to her, the version of him she married. But that man, she realized now, had never truly existed. My sister stopped speaking to our dad for a while. I kept things civil, but distant. The house felt like a war zone of smiles stretched too tight. And then, out of nowhere, came the twist. My dad left. Not in a suitcase in the middle of the night kind of way, no drama, just one morning, he came into the kitchen, looked at my mom, and said, "I'm moving out, I think I need to figure out who I really am." My mom didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just nodded. He packed up 2 bags, kissed my forehead, and walked out the door. 2 weeks passed, then 3, then 4. And one morning, I opened my email to find a message titled, "I'm sorry, please read." It was from him. In the email, he told me he was seeing a therapist, that he'd started going to a support group for men coming out later in life, that he was dating Greg again. Yeah, Greg. They had reconnected, and apparently Greg had never gotten married, never stopped hoping. My dad said they were taking it slow, but this time, he wasn't hiding. He asked for my forgiveness. He didn't expect it right away, but he hoped. The twist? I felt relieved. Not because everything was okay, but because, for once, he was finally being honest. Not just with us. but with himself. And somehow, after all the heartbreak, the lies, the confusion, that gave me peace. My mom, surprisingly, found peace too. She cried, sure, but then she started going to therapy, on her own terms. She even joined a book club, and for the first time in decades, she started figuring out what she wanted, not what she'd sacrificed. My sister? She's still angry. That's going to take time, and I respect that. As for me, I'm still healing. But here's what I know now. Sometimes, the truth shatters everything. But sometimes, it also sets everyone free. And you won't believe it, but now, after all that, my family might finally have a shot at being real. For the first time ever.